In a land where ancient forests whispered secrets to the mountains and rivers sang songs of ages past, there lived a golden dragon named Orion. His scales shimmered like the sun, and his eyes held the wisdom of millennia. Orion was not just a creature of myth but a being of immense power, gifted with the ability to see into the future and weave illusions to protect the innocent. Legends spoke of the great wealth that could be attained by possessing a golden dragon egg, said to grant its owner unparalleled fortune and prosperity. However, these eggs were incredibly rare, and the path to finding one was fraught with peril. Many had tried, lured by the promise of riches, but none had succeeded. It had been rumored that deep beneath the crumbling ruins of an ancient castle, locked away in a dungeon forgotten by time, a lone dragonling awaited her destiny. She was the last of her kind, a hatchling with scales of gold and eyes that sparkled with untapped magic. This creature's presence was known only to a select few, and her existence was a closely guarded secret. 3 adventurers set about exploring a hidden dungeon far from civilization where it abounded with the legend of Golden Dragon. The wind howled against the rocky face of the mountain, carrying with it the chill of the approaching night. 3 figures stood at the entrance of a dark cave, their cloaks fluttering. Aldred, a towering fighter known as Body, scanned the shadows with sharp eyes. Beside him, Mina Staller, a nimble thief, adjusted her leather gloves, and Evold Gibbon, a wizard of repute, gripped his staff with a hand already tingling with magical energy. "We're certain this is it." Mina's voice cut through the eerie silence, her gaze darting to Aldred. Aldred nodded. "This is the entrance to the dungeon. Let's proceed." As they stepped into the cave, the atmosphere shifted. The air grew damp and cool, carrying the earthy scent of moss and stone. Their footsteps echoed, mingling with the distant drip of water. Shadows danced on the walls, cast by the faint glow of Evold's staff. The passage narrowed, pressing in on them with an almost tangible weight. Each breath felt heavier, each sound more pronounced. The floor beneath their feet was uneven, forcing them to move with caution. After what felt like an eternity, the passage widened into a vast chamber. The ceiling arched high above them, lost in darkness. The sound of their steps now mingled with the skittering of unseen creatures. The chamber's walls were lined with ancient carvings, their meanings long forgotten. "Spread out and search," Aldred commanded, his voice a low rumble. They moved cautiously, eyes scanning every nook and cranny. Mina's keen eyes soon spotted a door, partially hidden behind a fallen column. She knelt before it, her fingers deftly working the lock. The quiet click of tumblers falling into place was a welcome sound. "It's open," she whispered, pushing the door ajar. Inside, a statue dominated the small room, its stone hands cradling a box. The statue's eyes seemed to follow them, its expression frozen in a silent warning. "Careful," Evold cautioned, stepping forward. "It might be booby-trapped." Mina, however, was already at the statue, her curiosity getting the better of her. As she lifted the lid of the box, a faint click echoed, followed by a swift hiss. Poison darts shot from hidden apertures, filling the room with deadly precision. Evold cried out as a dart embedded itself in his shoulder. Mina leapt back, eyes wide with shock. Aldred quickly moved to shield them from any further danger. Inside the box lay a key, its metal gleaming in the dim light. Despite the pain, Evold managed a weak smile. "We don't know what it opens, but it must be important." With a grimace, Evold began to chant, his hand glowing with a soft blue light. The wound on his shoulder closed, leaving only a faint scar. "Let's move on," he said, his voice steady once more. "It's open," she whispered, pushing the door ajar. They crossed the chamber and came upon a set of dark, narrow stairs leading upward. The air was thick with the scent of decay. They ascended slowly, each step a cautious venture into the unknown. Halfway up, a grotesque creature lunged from the shadows, its maw filled with rows of sharp teeth. The monster, reeking of death and decay, attacked with feral intensity. Aldred's sword clashed against its claws, Mina darted around, looking for a weak spot, and Evold hurled bolts of magical energy. The battle was fierce but brief. Together, they brought the beast down, its lifeless body collapsing on the stone steps. Breathing heavily, they continued their ascent. At the top of the stairs, another passage awaited them. It led to a large open courtyard, wild roses blooming in riotous colors amidst the overgrowth. The scent of flowers was a sharp contrast to the dank air below. "We've made it," Aldred said, a hint of relief in his voice. The courtyard was a stark contrast to the dark, damp passage they had left behind. Wild roses of every hue painted the landscape, their sweet fragrance filling the air. Aldred, Mina, and Evold surveyed the area, their senses alert for any signs of danger. "Let's split up and search," Aldred suggested, eyeing a stone structure in the middle of the courtyard. "I'll take the center. You two check the perimeter." Mina nodded, her eyes already scanning the shadowed edges of the courtyard. Evold, staff in hand, followed her, muttering incantations to detect any hidden threats. Aldred approached the stone structure, its surface almost entirely obscured by thick vines of wild roses. He began to carefully pull them aside, revealing ancient, weathered stone beneath. As he worked, a sudden rush of air and a menacing growl made him look up. From above, a creature descended with a fierce roar. It had the body of a lion, but powerful wings sprouted from its back, carrying it with deadly grace. Its claws extended, aiming for Aldred with predatory intent. Aldred barely had time to raise his sword before the beast was upon him. Its claws raked across his arm, leaving deep gashes. He swung his blade, the steel slicing through fur and flesh. The creature howled in pain but did not retreat. Instead, it pressed the attack, using its wings to maneuver with startling agility. The courtyard echoed with the sounds of their struggle. Aldred's sword flashed in the dim light, meeting the creature's claws in a flurry of strikes and parries. Blood, both his and the beast's, splattered the stone structure and roses, the scent of iron mingling with the flowers. "Aldred!" Mina's voice rang out, and a moment later, arrows whizzed through the air. The first arrow struck the beast's flank, the second embedding itself in its shoulder. The creature roared in fury and pain, its golden eyes blazing with rage. It turned its attention to Mina, but before it could retaliate, Aldred seized the opportunity. With a powerful strike, he drove his sword deep into its side. The beast staggered, its roars turning to pained whimpers. Beaten but not defeated, it flapped its wings furiously, lifting off the ground and retreating into the sky. Breathing heavily, Aldred watched as the creature disappeared over the treetops. Blood dripped from his wounds, his arm throbbing with pain. Mina rushed to his side, her eyes wide with concern. "Are you all right?" she asked, her voice laced with worry. "I'll live," Aldred replied with a grim smile. "Thanks to you." Before they could say more, Evold called out from across the courtyard. "Aldred, Mina! Over here!" They hurried to where the wizard stood, a look of triumph on his face. He gestured to a section of the courtyard wall that seemed unremarkable at first glance. "I found a magically concealed doorway," he explained. "But I can only reveal it with a spell that must be recited at night." The sun was already beginning to set, casting long shadows across the courtyard. They knew they had a few hours until darkness fell. "Let's set up camp," Aldred suggested, his voice weary but resolute. "We'll need to be ready for whatever lies beyond that door." As they prepared their campsite, the three adventurers shared stories and laughter, their camaraderie a comforting balm against the uncertainty of the night ahead. The wild roses swayed gently in the evening breeze, their petals glowing softly in the twilight. When night finally descended, they gathered around Evold. The wizard began his incantation, his voice low and melodic, weaving a spell that shimmered with ancient power. The air around them seemed to vibrate with energy, the hidden doorway gradually becoming visible. The adventure that awaited them beyond the door was a mystery, but together, they knew they could face whatever challenges lay ahead. With determination in their hearts and the bonds of friendship strengthening their resolve, they stood ready to venture into the unknown. As the incantation completed, the concealed doorway shimmered into view, glowing with an ethereal light. The three adventurers exchanged a glance, their faces set with determination. Aldred led the way, his sword ready, followed by Mina and Evold. Beyond the doorway, they found a narrow staircase leading down into the earth. The walls of the passage seemed to glow with a soft, magical light, casting eerie shadows that flickered and danced as they descended. The air grew cooler, and the scent of damp stone filled their nostrils. They ventured down, step after step, the staircase seeming to stretch on indefinitely. Time lost meaning in the dim light, there only focused the steps beneath their feet and the ever-deepening path before them. At last, they reached the bottom. Before them stood a grand, locked door, its surface covered with intricate engravings and glowing magical glyphs. The engravings depicted scenes of dragons and battles, ancient runes intertwining with the images. The glyphs pulsed with a soft, rhythmic light, as if alive with latent power. Mina stepped forward, her fingers deftly examining the lock. "This is a complex one," she murmured, her eyes narrowing in concentration. Her hands moved with practiced skill, tools slipping into place with precise, quiet clicks. After a few tense moments, there was a final, satisfying click, and the door swung open. They stepped through the doorway and were immediately transported into what appeared to be a serene meadow. A stream meandered through the lush green grass, birds sang melodious tunes, and the sun shone brightly above. The scene was breathtaking, and for a moment, they were lost in its beauty. Aldred knelt to drink from the stream, the cool water refreshing against his parched lips. Mina wandered, touching the petals of vibrant flowers, a smile on her face. But Ivold's brow furrowed, a sense of unease gnawing at him. "Wake up!" he yelled, his voice cutting through the idyllic scene. "This is an illusion." He began chanting, his voice rising and falling with the rhythm of ancient spells. Arcane energy crackled around him, and the air grew tense. He continued, each spell more intense than the last, until he fell to his knees, exhausted. The meadow dissolved, revealing their true surroundings. They stood in a vast dungeon room, the walls lined with torches casting a flickering light over heaps of gold. At the center of the room lay an immense pile of treasure, glittering and shining in the dim light. Perched atop the treasure was a young golden dragon, its scales shimmering like the sun. It was chained to the pile, its eyes filled with a mix of hope and sorrow. Its voice resonated in their minds, clear and desperate. "Please help me. You have the key. Unlock these bounds. I have been trapped here for a century by an evil mage. If you free me, all of this is yours." Without hesitation, Mina produced the key they had found earlier. She approached the dragon, her hands steady as she unlocked the chains. As the last shackle fell away, the dragon let out a triumphant roar. A ball of light enveloped it, and in a flash, it was gone. Aldred and Mina began to gather the gold, their eyes wide with wonder. Coins and jewels filled their packs, their dreams of wealth becoming reality. Ivold, however, noticed something different. Among the treasure, he found a large, gleaming egg. "Behold," he said, holding it up for the others to see. "This is a golden dragon egg. With a golden dragon as a friend, a man can have limitless power and wealth." The egg glowed softly in his hands, a symbol of untold potential. As they packed their newfound riches, the adventurers knew their journey was far from over.